Ben Jones, Jayon Brown, Anthony Ferkser, Rashaan Evans, Jeff Swaim, Harold Landry. Get into guys like Marcus Johnson, Ola Adeni, who was a good special teams player for you. Literally all three of your tight ends with Michael Pruitt as well. David Quessenberry at right tackle, Dane Cruikshank in your secondary. There's more players there, but we don't want to list all of them. And the question that I've asked you is there's probably two who are the most important, all right, on offense and on defense. And if you want to throw special teams in there, Randy Bullock is an unrestricted free agent as well. But let's say Randy's your guy because kickers are affordable. Even though, and I will say this about Brett Kern, there is contract stuff there with Brett that I would be curious to see how they handle that moving forward, because I think Brett would probably tell you in an honest moment that his season wasn't up to his standards, but Brett was still great throughout the course of the season, worth bringing back without question to me. But if you're talking about the most important offensive player on this list and the most important defensive player of guys who you want to bring back, Ben Jones on offense and Harold Landry on defense. That's, I think, where you start. Now, when Mike Vrabel is asked about the guys who are going to be unrestricted free agents at his end-of-season press conference on Locker Room Cleanout Day, Mike didn't get specific because he's never going to do that, but he was pretty adamant, is probably the word that I should use, about how he feels about a lot of dudes whose contracts are up on his team this past year.
I think that we've got some guys that I love coming to work, and I would be disappointed if they weren't with us next year. And I love what they're about. I love how they prepare, how they compete. And I think that what these guys believe in is they believe in the team. And they believe in playing a certain brand of football about effort and playing physical and playing together.
Now, again, he's not saying specific names there, but we understand that Mike Vrabel looks at a lot of these players whose contracts are up, and I would imagine two of these guys specifically, and says, yeah, we need to do what we need to do to bring these guys back. The same way that Kevin Byard was saying, yeah, he'd restructure his contract to make room for Harold Landry, who's going to be a big money deal. But if I made you pick between Ben Jones or Harold Landry, which would you choose? I think it's an interesting question, courtesy of our friends at A to Z Sports, Austin Stanley, and I think it was Jack Gentry when this conversation was had. Either way, when I'm looking at this, I feel like most people's knee-jerk reaction would be to say Harold. Edge rush and pass rush has been a plague for this franchise, not just in the last couple of years, but pretty consistently, really since like Curse and Haynesworth. We had Keith Bullock in here with us yesterday. They've struggled to find guys who can legitimately, season over season, get after the quarterback outside of Jarrell Casey from the interior, right? Premier edge rushing talent. Arakpo and Morgan were fine, but they don't quite fit this same classification. Now, you can survive with fine edge rushers in guys like Morgan and Arakpo, and they did for so many years that way. But are you willing to pay the premium to keep this group together? Autry, Landry, Simmons, and Dupree, because they have the ability to do something special. And then there's Ben Jones, because nobody is watching the center on a snap-by-snap basis unless it's your job to do so. And it's my job to do so, and even I don't understand all the intricacies of offensive line play in a way that I really wish that I did. But if you ask coaches, and if you ask these coaches about how they feel about Ben Jones, I mean, you could very easily make the argument that Ben Jones is the second most important football player on this team. Important, not best, second most important from the way that coaches and the Titans coaches talk about their starting center. Now, he's 32 years old, as opposed to Harold, who is currently 25 and will be 26 by next season. The shelf life on Ben is different. You understand that. But to look at these two guys next to each other and say, what do you value more and where your football team is right now, I think you have to make a determination on Harold. Is that a luxury that you really, really need to shell out for? Because I think that might change some people's perspectives. 615-737-1037 1045. You can jump in on the conversation. Steve in Mount Juliet has been waiting patiently. Hello, Steve.
Hello, how you doing? Landry I would choose because of Ben Jones's age.
Okay.
No, you don't get rid of Tannehill. There's nowhere to go. He's expensive. Everybody else is expensive. You try to pick up a backup in free agency, or if there's one in a couple of years on a draft. Tannehill wasn't bad. The head coach made a mistake by going for 2. How do you not give that defense a 1-point lead? They will kick the butts with a 1-point lead. Ball game 17-16, Titans. That's how it would have ended. He would have only had 2 interceptions. The second interception, does Tannehill not have the authority to audible? I can't believe he actually called that pass play after that 57-yard run. He should have just pounded it in for a touchdown. I'll listen to you on the radio.
Thanks very much, Steve. Okay, so a couple of things. I don't disagree with Mike. We haven't talked about the 2-point conversion play going back to Saturday's game, but I agreed with the decision to go with it. The metrics were aligned with going for it. I think that if you get the penalty that they did, that gives you the opportunity with a 250-pound running back to try and jam it in there, yeah, you do that because that's how they've won football games. Now, whether Derek was fully capable of being at the peak of his powers, different conversation. But the decision to go for 2, I think that's one of the and I'm not saying this, Steve, to dismiss your point. I'm just saying I think that's one of the easiest ones to armchair quarterback. And then on the second interception, I don't know if I don't know whether Ryan Tannehill has the ability to change the play in real time. We certainly see him talking a lot at the line of scrimmage because there's a lot that needs to be said, a lot that needs to be communicated. But Tannehill did address that first interception and said that, yeah, our rules on that play is to throw the bubble screen to Chester based on what the defense was showing them. And so Tannehill executed the play as he knows it to be by the rules that he was coached on, and that was the result. 615-737-1045. Bryce is in Hermitage up next on 1045 The Zone. Hello, Bryce.
Hey, Buck. How's it going?
Going well, thank you.
Hey, so I called in the 3HL a few days ago and made a point, and I got some heat for it, understandably. I was a little long-winded in that, but I wanted to call back and just kind of get to the point of what I was saying. And I wanted to ask you first, would you, excuse me, just got done with a workout. I'm a little out of breath. Rather have Eli or Ryan Tannehill?
Eli who?
Manning.
Well, I don't care about Eli Manning. Respectfully, Bryce is not playing.
No. I'm saying, here's my point, and I think that, and you've said it before, that I think it's possible to win a Super Bowl with Tannehill, and I agree, but it's going to have to be under certain circumstances. And I was just looking at Eli. He's won 2 Super Bowls, correct? And he had 6 playoff appearances. In his first game, he threw 0. First playoff game he threw, or postseason. I'm sorry, I don't know if it was just the game, but he threw 0 touchdowns and 3 picks in that first postseason. And then the only time he had more touchdowns and interceptions was the 2 seasons they won the Super Bowl, of course. So that's just my thought process there. And I think that they're relatively close in terms of how good of a quarterback they are. And I just think that if you can win with Eli, surely you can win with Ryan. So that's my point. So yeah, thanks for taking my call.
He got it in under the gun. He heard the music. Do you think people hear the music? I feel like a lot of times people don't hear the music.
Yeah, they should.
Okay.
He got off the stage though.
He did. He heard the music. He got out quick. He was out of breath. He was struggling. I don't know if that's. I mean,
just got a workout in.
I guess what's the right answer to that question? You know what I'm saying? Like, and again, I'm not trying to be dismissive. I don't know what basis that has in what we're talking about. Like, and maybe that's like a summer topic, right? Would you rather have the career of Eli Manning or the career of Ryan Tannehill? And of course you would say the career of Eli Manning over and over again because Eli Manning's won 2 Super Bowls. But like, it's completely irrelevant to football at this point. All right, let's see if we can redeem ourselves with Alex in Nashville. Alex, I believe in you. I hope that you won't tell me, though, that Drew Brees is going to be the next offensive coordinator of the Titans or that Eli Manning will be the next quarterback.
No, I'm not going to say that. How are you doing, Buck?
I'm well, thank you.
I wanted to know, what does it mean when reporters and analysts say Ryan Tannehill is not comfortable in the offense? Like, I'd like for you to explain that, since they're practicing, Monday through Friday. What does that actually mean when they say he's not comfortable? He doesn't look comfortable.
All right, who said that, Alex? Can you be specific? Because I haven't heard that analysis.
Gotcha. To be honest, I can't remember. I listened to your show and Blaine and Mickey, and it was on Blaine and Mickey's show. They were saying, he doesn't look comfortable in the offense, and I just wanted to know what that means so I can get a better understanding,
I appreciate the call, Alex. I don't have any context for the conversation. Lucas, you're on Blaine and Mickey after this. Was that Blaine's analysis that he doesn't look comfortable?
I would think so. I don't want to speak for Blaine. Blaine certainly has had his criticisms of Todd Downing's play calling. We played a piece of it from Titans Talkback on Monday when we were talking about the Bengals game. But I think I have heard that. I think that kind of falls in line with Downing not putting Tannehill in the best position to succeed.
Yeah, well, from that standpoint, though, like Ryan Tannehill, the execution. How did we get back into Tannehill? How did this happen? Wait, did I say Ben Jones and Harold Landry? What happened here?
In my defense, I put Tannehill's name on the screener next to Alex's name.
Oh, in your defense, so you're saying that I'm not reading the calls properly?
You said it. Your words.
All right, it's a fair allegation. Michael in Charlotte is in North Carolina. That says Landy Jones. It doesn't say Landry Jones. It says Landy Jones. That's Lucas's fault. Hello, Michael.
Hey, how's it going? All right, I'll talk about Ben Jones and Harold Landry.
Great.
I won't bring up Tannehill.
Okay.
So, for me, I like Ben Jones, his longevity, his body of work, what he's done over a big period of time, and I think you need that continuity on your offensive line. Harold Landry, they drafted Rashad Weaver for a reason. So I think it comes down to them. What do they think they have in Rashad Weaver? And then for Landry, I hate to say this, but did he have this big year knowing it was a contract year and knowing it was going to be a payday for him? That would be my big concern. But, yeah, I'm rolling with Ben Jones if I've got to choose between the two.
See, I appreciate the call, Michael. Look at you. You're so quick with the hook back there when you fade them down, man.
Yeah.
You got to give them some room to breathe.
He was just going to say I'll hang up and listen.
That's okay, but you're like people are thinking that you just dropped him through the trapdoor that we use on Tuesdays. He's just falling into this. He's sinking into the sports talk radio callers. By the way, people are losing their minds on social media about our callers today. Shout out to Offseason Questions. Ben Jones is – here's what Harold Landry and Rashad Weaver aren't the same player, right? That's why my problem with that's the only problem that I would have with the analysis. Because I'll be honest with you, from my standpoint, I would lean Ben Jones because here's why. I look at what they are on offense. I understand how they're built. And also, as we'll talk about later in the show, I think that they need to consider evaluating, as they will. I'm not telling them anything they don't know. But I think that there needs to be a legitimate organizational reset as to how they play their games. Okay? And I'll explain more about that at noon. But when I look at Ben Jones and how they're currently constructed, one, he helps that entire offensive line. Two, he does not miss games. Taylor Lewan and Roger Saffold, the biggest indictments of them this season was that they missed games. Fine when they're out there, availability. And again, it's going to depend on player to player and from injury to injury. They're not parallel circumstances. But Ben Jones doesn't miss football games. Ben Jones has done nothing but make that offensive line better since they improved the talent on either side of him from Josh Klein and Quentin Spain, who is out here trash-talking Jeffrey Simmons after giving up 9 sacks in a playoff game that his quarterback still managed to win. Like, they have definitely upgraded the position, even if Nate Davis was a bit underwhelming this year. And then there's the quarterback. If this is going to be your quarterback, you need to do as many things as humanly possible to keep him comfortable. Because to go back to the caller's question earlier about Ryan Tannehill, you know how to make a quarterback miserable? You give him a new center that he's not fully comfortable working with, especially a young guy, because offensive line, especially from that position, it can be so complicated. And I will tell you, again, when you talk to coaches about this stuff, there are very few of them that won't tell you that the center is not the second most important position on a football team.
Was it in Seattle that Ben Jones checks out and it takes one play for a shotgun snap to rock it over Tannehill's head?
No, that was New York.
Okay.
That was a game they lost, and that was a turnover. No, did they recover that fumble?
I think Tannehill fell on it, but, you lose 10 yards. It was one play without Ben Jones.
And they settled for a field goal. And we've seen that happen before, right? Ben doesn't miss games in that way. And when things do, you see what can happen. You want to help that quarterback go nuclear mode more often? You take your center away from him. I really think, and again, it's not end all be all. Like, I don't know that they have to make this decision between Harold and Ben. I think if they don't have a reasonable option behind Ben Jones, and I don't know where Corey Levin is at this point in his career. He's bounced around a lot, and he wasn't good enough to beat anybody out the first time he was here in Nashville. But Corey Levin is an interesting look at that, because what we've seen from Brewer is that he's better at guard, and they've tried different players behind that. Jameel Douglas was not good enough. Aaron Stinney didn't last here, even though he ended up on the Super Bowl champion Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The center position is complex. I'm not saying that pass rushers, you want as many pass rushers as humanly possible. But I think as to what it is that they do and how many other guys they have that can do what Harold can do right now, it's a luxury that you have not been used to having. There's only one player who can do Ben Jones's job at the level that Ben does it, where you don't have to worry about the center. Now, you said, Lucas, Corey Levin is on the roster?
He is on the Titans roster, yeah.
I don't see him in this list of unrestricted free agents. Is he on a multi-year deal?
They claimed him off waivers in September of this past season.
What's his contract situation?
That I would have to check closer.
All right, look that up for me if you would, and I'll go back to the phone. 615-737-1045. There is Alex in Dixon who's up next. What's up, Alex?
Hey, guys. Hope you guys are doing well. Honestly, I think the best course of action right now would be to trade our first-round pick. Because if I'm right, we have 2 fourth-round picks this year. So I would trade the first-round pick for a second and a fourth, and try to go and I think a weak quarterback class this year in the draft is actually to our benefit. Where we could get a guy in the second and then bolster our offensive line and maybe a wide receiver of some sort in the later rounds with all those picks. So I think that might be the best course of action. Let a rookie quarterback kind of come in and learn the system for a year while we stick with Tannehill this year so that maybe next year that rookie quarterback can compete for the starting job with either a new quarterback or with Tannehill again or some combination of the sort. So thanks, guys. Tighten up.
Thanks for the call, Alex. Unrelated. What's the contract situation for Corey Levin? Because that was another Tannehill call.
He'll be an unrestricted free agent in 2023.
Okay, so they've got him under contract. That's interesting.
Yeah, $1 million cap hit in 22.
Okay. Now that's, again, do they trust him that way? I don't know what the answer to that is. Again, Ben Jones doesn't miss that many snaps, so you haven't had to see this play out in real time. Now, Corey Levin, I think it was in 2019 or maybe 2018 when Ben missed some time in that Jets game, and they shuffled things around, and Corey Levin got some play at center, if I recall correctly. I think they moved Ben Jones out to guard for a couple of snaps to try and keep that thing afloat. Again, Ben is the rare center that can do that. You know what I'm saying? Like Ryan Jensen for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers is another one of these guys. They don't come around that often, and they're much, much more difficult to basically coach up to the point. You have to move on eventually. At some point, this is going to happen. But if the issue right now is quarterback comfort level and quarterback stability, the worst possible thing to do is to take the starting center away from the quarterback who you've got concerns about.